misery, don't, because unless there's a broken jaw, pretty much we can pull them through. You know, if it's, you know, and even jaw, sometimes she had a broken jaw. Her jaw was broken, but it wasn't broken in the hinge. So Dr. Tope was able to put some, what is that stuff? It wasn't a plate. It was like it wasn't silicone, but it hardened. He fixed it and he hardened it to her teeth. So she was like this for about 12 weeks. Walking around like that. She didn't, bless her heart. But she was just little when she broke her jaw, just tiny. And what she did, you have to watch the little ones when you have a carrier. The bigger ones too, but more little ones than bigger ones. If you put a towel or a blanket in there and it's got the pile has kind of got the little loops, you know, their little toenails will get caught in there, and when their toenail gets caught, they don't think to just pull it out. They start just spinning around trying to get loose. And so as they spin, it just gets tighter and they pull out more, and it gets tighter and they pull out more and more. And I've had them lose toes like that. I had one little boy lose a foot like that, and I had a little girl break her leg. She got hung in a pouch, and instead of going back, she kept going around and around, and she wrenched and actually broke her leg. So whatever you put in there, I like those little, you know, the little cheap $2.88 blankets at Walmart. Nothing with the pile, you know, that they can get caught in. Babies, when you get ones that are, my oldest son calls them little fat eggs. And, you know, they're the little cute ones that everybody goes, I want to keep it, because it's just so cute and they're fluffy. And you go and you pick them up and you put them in here and you put them in your car and you get to where you're going and they ain't one in there. They will come through these holes. And so now if I'm going to put them in there, before I put them in there, I'll take their head and stick it up there and see if I can get their head through that little thing, or if I can even almost get their head through one of those things. They're not going in there. Now, if you still, what you can do is you can just put something on here.
Turn it around on the seat and put that.
Yeah, you know, anything like that. I have even, Beth, I know, will cover hers with the shade cloth. You know, you can buy the rolls of shade cloth and just zip tie 'em. Chicken wire, you know, anything like that where they can't get through. But with babies, the older babies, when I pick them up, I either have these things with me, the little critter carrier thingy doodles, and you just put them together, which, you know, they're supposed to be really simple, and I'm standing here going, So anyway, I try to get my kids to do that for me before I leave, so I'm not standing there going, okay, 1, 2, 3, because they'll come through those holes in no time flat, because I've gone in my bathroom before I realized that, and you're like, and they're going everywhere, I'm like, how the heck did you get out?
Is it okay to use the tote boxes with the
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I've got even the little small ones like this, and I just drill holes. There again, you don't want to use a big drill. I'll use one about the size of my pinky, and I put them all the way around the side and all across the top. And I learned a little trick. I saw something on Facebook. And sometimes when you use the drill, it'll crack it when you do it. If you'll heat it with a blow dryer first and then do it, it shoots right through and it won't crack it. But I just keep those in my car. You know.
What we have is real deep.
Mm-hmm.
Casey and Alex drilled holes in the top of it on the side.
Yeah.
And it's real deep, and it just has a snap.
Yep. And you can just, you know, stick it right in the back.
Blanket
And
there.
you've got, when they're up and they're running around and they're little fuzzy cuties, you don't really have to worry about heat unless they're sick or they're looking bad. But now when they're small and they're tubing and you're taking them off mama, they need that heat. Now possums don't need heat like a squirrel would. You're not going to have to keep them as warm. honestly, I would rather somebody bring them to me and I feel like they're a little too cool than too warm, because their body temperature being lower anyway. I found out once I got my incubator, I used to keep them on heating pads, of course. And I would take them out and I'd go, oh, they don't feel warm. Well, when I got the incubator and I knew that the temperature was correct, I would take them out and I would go, oh, they don't feel warm, but I know that they're the right temperature. And it's not that they don't feel warm, but they're not like warm. And we don't want to, you don't want to keep them like warm. The little, they're, what do you call them? Hand warmers that you can get. They're great to keep. You just shake them, and but they get hot. They get really hot. So if I use one of these, say I've got my little carrier and I put my babies in there, I'll put this on the very bottom, and I have even wrapped it in something, then put the babies in something, because they get really, I was surprised how hot they get. You can also you could just take a sock and fill it full of rice, tie it off, put that in your container in your car, stop by Spinks or QT, hey, let me use your microwave, pop it in there, warm it, stick it in there with them. Just don't lay the baby right on it. There again, put a blanket over it. You can use a water bottle and put hot water in it, drop it down in a sock, but be real careful, because when you put it in there and you go to turn a corner, it can roll. And if you've got little pinkies, it can roll on top of those babies and squish them. So there again, I'll put another blanket or a towel, I have a lady who gave me an old IV bag, and we just put green dye in it so I knew not to use it. And like this morning, 2 o'clock, I was headed to Anderson to get some. I just chucked it in the microwave for 1 minute, grabbed it, stuck it out, put it under the blanket, and then I took my little pouch, my little zip-up pouch. I put the babies in there, zip it up, and so then there's this, then there's a blanket, and then there was the warm, and that, it wasn't like really warm. Now, had I used a hand warmer, wow, I probably would have wrapped it in that and then over again, then put the babies in one of these and on, because they get so hot. And if they get overheated, a lot of animals, they kind of, they'll dehydrate. It'll kill a baby possum.
Yeah, they can't pant like all over.
Yeah, if they get overheated, there's just not gonna. Rubber gloves, you want to keep rubber gloves in the car, because I got a call last year. I had a little, I've always got stuff on me, and I had a little place apparently on my finger that I thought had healed, and it hadn't. We were in a different car. I had no rubber gloves. We went out, and he was like, there's a mama in my trash can, and I think she's dead, but I see babies. And so I go around behind the house, and they had turned the trash can over. They had done exactly right to let the possum, if you can encourage people, I try not to go, oh, we'll come get it. I try to educate them, let them know that they're good, unless that possum can be in danger from dogs or, they had tipped the trash can over. So I go over, and I thought, oh, I didn't bring my gloves. That's okay. And I reached in and I grabbed, and when I grabbed Mama had been dead a really long time. Apparently like a couple of days. And she had slippage. And when I did like that, the skin came off of her tail. And I got that in that cut. That's the worst infection. Do you remember that last year?
Yeah.
That's the worst infection in that finger. I cannot tell you how bad it hurt. Use rubber gloves, seriously. Even if you don't have rubber gloves, say, can I have a Bilo bag? Use a Bilo bag. Just anything. If they're freshly hit on the side of the road, my husband would kill me. I'm glad he's not here. I don't normally use rubber gloves. That's just because that's just me. I just want to get them and go. But if I think that they've been there for any length of time, please use rubber gloves. Use a Bilo bag. Anything. just don't put your hands on it, because I thought that one, and I'm talking a little tiny pinprick, and I thought it was healed. I couldn't feel anything, I couldn't see anything, but there was open enough there that when that dead tissue or whatever gas got in there, and I got a horrible infection. Finger swelled up, ended up at the doctor. I walk in and he's like, because he knows if I come in, it's got something to do with a wild animal.
One thing that one time Casey and I had to transport, we had the babies with us, we had them with us, we turned the heat seat, if your seats are heated, and we just set them over on.
That's a good idea.
And it just kinda heated them up.
Yeah.
Are those snuggle safes too warm? You put
No,
like layers?
I use those. I love those things
I do
too.
too.
Yeah. They're discs. Are y'all familiar with those? They're called Snuggle Safe. You can get them like, I think Suzanne got mine. I think she ordered them off Amazon, but I think you can get them in pet stores sometimes, can't you?
Yeah, some of them.
Yeah, but they're discs, and they're they're hard as a rock, and they're heavy, but they're in a little fleece pouch, and you put them in the microwave, and I've got a little dinky microwave, so according to the little instructions on the thing, I put it in there for like 8 minutes, but it will stay warm for 12 hours. So, now it's got the little fleece thing on it, but they still get pretty warm, and it'll tell you, even after you take it out, it'll get a little warmer, but then it turns, whatever's in there turns to a liquid, and so, you can use things like that. I use those a lot in the wintertime for my guys outside, but they're about that big around, so, if you would rather get one of those, that's reusable. You've got that, and, these little things, once you use it, it's
It's
done.
nice if you have to transport a long way.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah, when I was doing programs a lot, and I would have to take babies and feed them, we were doing them all day long, I would use the little snuggle safes. Just, make sure, if you want to use a snuggle safe, when you get your little, container for babies or whatever, that's going to fit in there. They're about that big around,
Yeah,
the size of a small plate and about that thick, but you want to make sure it'll fit in there, and then you've got room for a blanket to go on top. I was thinking last night, I noticed that I did something, I guess after you do stuff for a long time and you go, oh, I didn't even realize I do that, but I do, and maybe people might like to know that. If you've got one at home and it's wild and you're feeding it, you go to take those balls or put those balls in front of them, and they're hungry and they're coming like this. I've realized, and I don't even remember why or how I started doing it. What I do is I take the dish, and she's sitting right here. I don't just put the dish in front of them. She's facing me. I do this. Come around behind them. I just stick my hand in the cage and come around behind and sit that dish down like that, because if it's coming at you, they're expecting it. But if you're doing it and you just sit that dish down, then they go, oh, and you got time to move your hand out of the way. And because you do possums, right? Yeah. I've also used paper towel roller. Just anything that can put a barrier between you and them when they're wild. That if they bite, it's not going to hurt them. I've used paper towels, and just put it up next to them and just hold and then get their ball. If you ever had one and you needed to keep it overnight and, I've got to change it. You've got one in a carrier, it's wild. You've got to keep it overnight for some reason. That would be by your choice. We're not going to ask you to keep one overnight. I'm just saying, if you did, and that blanket, oh gosh, the blanket's dirty, it's pee-peed on the blanket. What you want to do is, I'll usually go in very slow. Don't just ram your hand in the carrier. You want to go in very slowly, and I'll take a rolled up newspaper, anything, and just I don't go at it, I just keep it right in front of my hand, and then I'll take my hand and just take that blanket, and I'll do that newspaper, and I'll just pull like that. Then when the blanket, I'll use this. When I go to put that blanket back in, what I'll do is I get it folded where I know it's going to fit in the carrier. And what I like to do is if they're gonna have to spend the night in the carrier, I like to put the blanket at the back and then a little pee-pee pad or something in the front with their ball on it. And so I would take that blanket and I would fold it like this. And then when I go to put it in there, I'm gonna open the door. I'm not gonna slide it in like this. I'm gonna go down to the very last layer and I'm gonna put my hand in there. And then I can actually ram it up under that possum and it can just bite and do all it wants to do, but it's not gonna bite me. It can't get to me because I've got my hand under that blanket. Then it's got a fresh blanket and I got my fingers because they got sharp little toofies. If somebody brings you, because like I say, once people realize that you know, if you're not even rehabbing, just transport a possum. Oh, you do possums? And they're gonna start bringing you stuff. If they come to you and they go, you know, I saw this little mama and there were 2 little babies laying there. And here, you know, if they bring you 2 babies, ask them, where is that mama? Can you go back and check? There's not gonna be just 2 babies. The least I have ever gotten is 4. The most I've gotten is whole 13. And actually last year, Madison Simmons had a mama that had 14 teats and she had 14 babies. So, you know, could have 14, normally it's only 13, that was just a fluke. But Beth had a man that the possum was dead, he found a couple of babies, he actually buried the mama. And he brought her like 2 or 3 babies and she was like, where is the mama? And he's like, I buried it. And she was like, go dig it up. He did, and those babies were still alive because it had only been like an hour, you know. And they're just nursing away, you know, they were just little bitty babies. So if they just bring you a couple, when I met somebody the other night in Greer, and she said, I just brought the whole mama. I said, that's fine. And so I reached in there and I took the mama out and I laid her down in my carrier and I went, and there was 1 baby. And so I looked back at her thing and there was another baby. And she's looking at me and I said, there's only 2 babies. She said, yeah. I said, no. She said, no, that's all she had. And I said, no. And I rolled the mom over and I said, let's look and see how many active teats she's got. She had 6 teats that were stretched out, so I knew she had 6 babies. Well, we ended up 2 o'clock in the morning walking her pasture, looking for babies. We never did find them. Her dog had killed the mama, and what a dog will do is they'll grab it, usually around the neck, and they do this, and so the babies, you know, so tell them, you know, wherever you saw that dog run and grab the possum, because a lot of times they're in the yard or they're walking their dog and they'll see it happen. You know, the dog gets away from them and they grab it. Where they're shaking, those babies are going to be right in there. Or if they're dragging it, they'll be, you know, I found them just in a row. You can just walk and they're just, because as the dog drug, you know, the babies, because they have broken that seal, or if they're older, you know, and they're just riding in the pouch, when they shake, they're just going to come out, you know.
Same
so
when they're hit by a car, the mom will take the impact, and we found babies scattered.
And you'll, the little ones, I mean, even the little tiny, I got some yesterday that were 12 grams, and their mouth is just hardly, I mean, I can just get a little tiny 2.8 tube in, tiny tube, but you can hear them going, but as they get older, it's like, it's almost like a little kitten sneeze. So if you can just say, you know, even tell them, listen for that. Go outside and just listen. And I have had people like, I mean, of course, when they come in, they're dehydrated and looking bad. But, you know, 24, 48 hours later, and they'll call and go, I heard something. I couldn't figure out what it was. And they kept following the sound, and they found it, and that little baby sitting there. And they do that because mama goes, and she'll click at them, and they find each other. So, you know, tell them to listen for a kitten, you know, a little ch-ch or a sneeze, or I just call it ch-chin. But any kind of little noise like that, and that girl never did find those other babies, and I know that they're out there, and it just kills me, because she's got horses and everything, and I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna get stepped on, but, you know. But if you can encourage people, if they call you and say, you know, I need you to come and get this possum because it's in my yard, and you know, I'll ask them. I'll say, you know, well, why do you want me? You know, why do you want to remove it? And then that gives you a chance to educate them. You know, what they do for the environment, and you know, they'll keep your, you know, rats and mice and snakes and all this, and if they say no, you know, I want it gone, that's me, I'm tweeting. Sorry. In case my butt tweets. You know, if you can't encourage them. Now, if they're in the middle of a neighborhood, you know, I'll say, but I've had people that live out in what I call a little piece of heaven, you know, and they're like, I've got this possum coming in my yard, and I'm like, well, you're living on 40 acres. I'm going to say you got a possum coming. You know, so those are the kind of people, try to get them, try to educate them, you know. If they can take, you know, if they've already trapped it and they can take a picture, because that one little girl that had the sore right here, she looked good.
Yeah, that was the one that was exposed in the trap against the brick building.
Yeah, she looked good. Like the first picture I think Miranda said she got, she was like, well, y'all can just take it and release it. And then after y'all got to looking, she had a big abscess sore right here. So if they can just snap a couple of pictures, if they're willing to let her go, or they go, you know, I'll take it to the state park, or I've got a friend that's got, you know, 20 acres, and they say, just go, okay, that's fine, but can you snap a couple of pictures and make sure, you know, because you may look at that picture and go, whew, that don't look good. You know, it looks real thin or scrawny, or, you know, there's something wrong, broken tooth, whatever. That's when you need to go, well, you know, we can release it on your friend's property, but let's come and get that one, you know, let me get it first and see. But if they're in a good area and you can talk them into and educate them, do it. Don't go get them. But if they're in the middle of a neighborhood, I go get them no matter what, you know. And I've had people say, will you bring it back, you know, after it's healed? And I'm like, you know, I can't. That's where Sherry comes in. I'm like, no, I got a friend that releases for me. I'm not, because you don't want to just put them right back in the neighborhood, because it's just whatever has happened to them is going to happen again. Yep, it is. And it's the same way, you know, with the babies. People ask you when it gets bigger, can you bring it and release it back at the house, and you just have to tell them no. But if they do have property and there's water on the property and they're not, I mean, I've had people with, you know, a couple of acres, and that's good, but it's on the side of a busy road, and that possum's not going to stay right there in those 2 little acres, so you need to tell them, you know, no, that's, you know, we need to take it and relocate it elsewhere. But if you can get them to leave it there, leave it, absolutely. Because I'm going to talk to that lady. If it's safe, if they're safe from those dogs, we might leave them there. But I don't know. I'm going to go look. Anybody have any questions?
Can we kind of cover what a head trauma possum looks like? What did your possum look like when you saw it in the road the other day?
As I was coming up on it, I could see that it was really
Right, was
shed
sitting.
blood.
Okay, was she sitting up or down?
She was laying on it.
Okay.
And I saw this bright red blood, and as I drove by, I saw it's on its head. But I couldn't stop to see, so I called in.
Yeah.
And someone had moved it, apparently.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I couldn't see it well enough as far as up close
Right.
to see what the injuries were.
Yeah.
I just saw blood.
Yeah, a lot of times you'll pull up on them in the road. They've been hit, sometimes even just shaken by a dog. A head trauma, I can look and tell you if it's head trauma or not, because they will sit.
They're like they're praying all day.
Yeah, and they'll just sit with their little heads down like this.
Oh.
Right, I mean, you know, sometimes it takes them a couple of days. Sometimes I've had it take a couple of weeks. That they just, you know, they sit. They'll eat. Sometimes they have to relearn how to eat. You know, they'll eat, but they just sit like this. And then once their brain wakes up enough. Now, there's still head trauma, don't get me wrong. They have no fear of anything, of anybody. But if you walk up on one, or I have gotten them, they're rabid, come and get them, get it out of my yard. And I pulled up, well, the reason why I said that is because I'm like, okay, it's okay, just don't go out there again. You gotta get it, and you know, okay. And so I pulled up, and there's this little old possum, and he's just going, just making his circles. He's just as happy as he could be. He was just circling, and that's what they do. A lot of them, when they have head trauma, at my house we call, this is bad, Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train. I'm like, hop on board the Crazy Train, and they'll get on, and they don't necessarily go just in a circle in the house, but they have, it's like a track, it's a path, and they go and under the table and through the kitchen and back, and under the table and through the kitchen and back, and that's what they do. So, you know, they may be circling, they may be sitting like this, but you're gonna have the little bloody bubbles and the breathing, but it's, we can usually fix them.
Yeah, because the girl Stephanie that called me, she said that her husband saw it sitting on the side, that it was sitting up at 4 o'clock or whatever, and then when she took her kid to school 4 hours later, it was still sitting there, and that's how she knew it was still alive. So she went back and got it and got the babies, and we met her. And
Yeah.
I met you at Red Lobster with her. And those
Oh, I
babies.
remember that
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yeah. I know there was one. My hero got him. We
He's
named
the
him.
oldest guy of the
Yes,
so
we
far.
named him Scotty McGee. The girl saw him. He had, we guess, been hit by a car, something, because he's just not quite all there, but he's down in the rear. And that's another thing. If then somebody calls you and they go, it's been hit by a car and its back's broken. Not necessarily. When possums are old, they'll go down in the rear and they'll drag their back legs. All they need is some quail eggs and they can start walking again. And so the girl said he ran under like a car next to her or something. And she just went back to her car, and because he was only on 2 legs, she figured he wasn't going anywhere. So she said, I went to the car to get my phone to try to get somebody to help me. And she got me on the phone, and she goes, okay, yeah. Oh my God, he's gone. She looked and looked and looked. God bless him. He went out there and searched and searched and searched, and he found him. And his little legs are healing, and he's wobbly, but didn't know how to turn that down. He's wobbly, but he's starting to try to.
Will he be able to be released?
He's old,
Oh, is he?
very, very, very
What causes
old.
them to go down in the?
We don't really know. For some reason, when they get old, the females will do it some, but the males, you can pretty much know that they're going to go down. But so now what we start doing, we found out, I didn't realize that quail eggs were as good for, I mean, they're good for us too. But I start giving mine a quail egg like 2 times a week, and my boys don't go down anymore. And I had a female go down several weeks ago, and so I started her on 2 a night. And within 3 days, she was standing up. So, you know, if they see them dragging, don't, you know, there again, don't think,
I'll assume it's been hit.
yeah, that it's been hit, because that's not necessarily true. I mean, it could be. It could be that, you know, it's an old injury and it may not walk again, but, you know, there again, there's other stuff that we can do. I know Beth has said before, you know, I scoop them up off the side of the road and bring them to me, and I'll do everything I can to bring them back to life. Just don't, you know, just don't panic and take them to the vet and
They don't
have
really know
them
how,
put down.
vets around here do not know how to treat possums. The first thing they'll do is they're gonna try to raise their temperature, their body temperature, and that's the last thing you want to do when we get them.
Yeah.
That's why we take all of ours to Anderson.
Yep, they all go to Dr. Tope, or if you're in like the Boiling Springs, Spartanburg area, we go to, is it Heartland? Is that right?
Parkland, is it?
Heartland Animal Hospital. It's Dr. Eric McCurry. His wife is there with him, but she is terrified of them and won't get anywhere near them. And he is off on Wednesdays, just so you know. So don't go on Wednesdays if you need to drop a possum off. Wow, I am popular. That's not good. That's really not a good sound this time of
Does
year.
anyone have any questions on what you think you would, if you saw one that was hurt, what you think you would struggle with as far as like containing it or picking it up, or
Oh, sure.
sometimes it's just a matter of having the correct thing in your car.
So I'm curious, like, so say I see one and I pull over. I know you're talking about having gloves and stuff like that, but if I don't know if it's gonna react in some way, like, I don't know if it's like a dog where it could bite you if you touch it and it's in an injured area.
Mhm.
Like, can we just wrap it in a blanket, and then just.
And they're not vocal, like if you pick a dog up that's been hit by a car, it will
Right.
scream and it will
Yeah.